Let me show you a few slides because I got tons of them, and you don't have to put that in right now. No, I just got that just in case something were to happen.
Okay.
So let's assume that it's not going to.
Never assume anything.
Yeah, I know that. The last time I did, I was wrong. Okay, look, let me just give you some examples of the kind of thing I'm talking about, that things that we see every day and we don't realize where they've come from. Now this is the Ark of God. You'll see this is the New York State seal. In New York, the State of New York seal, you will see in the middle is the lost Ark of the Covenant. Here it is, the Ark of the Covenant. You remember this from Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark? And here it is again. Incidentally, the ark, the box itself represented the female, the ability to give life. And so the priest would drop blood in front of the ark, representing the menstrual cycle of the female, because it had again to do with sex. So we see bringing the Ark of the Covenant, okay? Now from Smith's Bible Dictionary, we're given to understand that the box with the handles and the angel's wings, etc. Smith's Bible Dictionary. In Smith's Bible Dictionary, you look up the word ark. Thought I had a larger. Anyway, the word was adopted from the Egyptian. There's an Egyptian ark. It goes on to say that the ark was a ark of the contract in Egypt, which was copied later by the Hebrews and called the Ark of the Covenant. Here's a dictionary of the Bible, another one, and there again, you look up the word ark and it will tell you it was an Egyptian ark. The Egyptians had and came up with the idea of a sacred ark. There is the ark that was found in King Tutankhamun's tomb when they found the tomb of King Tut. And there is King Tutankhamun's ark that was found in his tomb. Here it is again. You will see the Egyptians carrying the ark. Again, you will see at the top left, they're carrying the Holy Ark. This is the Egyptian, not Hebrew. This is 1,000 years before Hebrews were ever even near Egypt. They had the lost Ark. Now, here's an interesting, well, wait a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself because I want to jump around a little bit. On that first one, I'm not going to go through all of these. I want to jump around a little bit. I just wanted to show you that to give you an example of the ark. Now, the next one. The next one is Solomon's temple. We're told about King Solomon's temple. Incidentally, there was no King Solomon. So don't look for King Solomon in history because there was no King Solomon. It's the word Sol-om-on. S-O-L is the sun in Latin. In Latin, the word sun is S-O-L, Sol. And in the Hindu priest of the sun, they call the sun Om. Remember the priest of Om? They chant Om. And On is the city of the sun. The Greeks call it Heliopolis. It's called Heliopolis to this day. But the Egyptians, Heliopolis means the city of the sun. The city of the sun, Heliopolis in Greek, was originally called in the Egyptian On. Look it up in any dictionary, O-N. That's why when you walk into a room, you flip a switch on. because On was the city of the sun in Egypt. So the three words for the sun in the three esoteric languages of the world is Sol, Om, and On, Solomon. And Sol, Om, On's temple, you will see the Temple of Solomon. The word here used for the, well, let's, all right. This is the word used for any oily substance in the Old Testament in the Hebrew is shemen or semen. Strong's Bible Concordance has it saying, it is very suggestive of the old Hebraic writings, that when we find the oil of anointing for phallic pillars, priests and kings, was called semen. The word used by the Romans and our medical men for the fluid of the male. Consequently, this is where we get the word Christos, or oil. Now, here is a ground plan for the Temple of Solomon, Solomon's Temple. And now we're hearing so much about how the fraternities are wanting to, in the Middle East, want to rebuild Solomon's Temple. Well, you better look at this because it's not what you think it is. Solomon's Temple. There's the ground plan for the temple. Now, if you look at Solomon's Temple, that had two pillars at the gate, at the entrance. It was Jachin and Boaz. Jachin and Boaz, look at the ground plan for Solomon's Temple. Here's what it really is. You'll see the male phallic, and it's within the female. So the whole Temple of Solomon, the holy is the male phallic, and the most holy is the head of the penis, and it goes into the female, which is called the Temple of Solomon, the Temple of Life. And consequently, Solomon's Temple was merely a representation of the sex act. Now here we have, down at the bottom it's showing the same thing. So this is why you will find on churches a big phallic. So when you drive by churches, you see these things, they're called colonnades. Colonnade. Incidentally, that's why Colin Powell, ABC News, about a year ago, said, it was interesting, they said Colin Powell, his actual real name was Collins Powell. Collins Powell. But all the politicians around Washington, D.C. thought he was so full of it, they called him Colin Powell. That's where he gets it, Colin Powell. And that is a representation of the male phallic, and it's on a church. Again, this is why you priests have to go to a seminary. Here it is again. Here's another temple. You can tell the layout of the temple. No, that's not Bill Clinton. This is a Egyptian god named Min, M-I-N. And you'll see the Egyptians climbing the pole. It's called the ceremony of climbing the pole of Min. The pole, of course, is the representation of the male phallic. One of the most important is that of the maypole. This relic of pagan tree worship originally represented the cosmic axis and the phallic power of the sky god. Here are dancing around the maypole and have no idea in the world that women are dancing around the male phallic. And I think, and then Christians once a year in September have something called See You at the Pole. And have no idea in the world that it's the same old idea of see you at the pole, dancing around the male phallic. These are called scepters of power. These are symbols of male power. Yeah, that's what it means. So when you see these symbols in their hands, it represents the dominance of the world by the male sexual principle. Okay? Okay. Even the playing cards like the jack has. That's why it's called a jack. It goes back to the Bible, jacking the pole. And here's something we call the pillar of life. You'll see these two pillars. There are always two pillars representing the male phallic. In the old ancient Phoenician Canaanite system, there are always two phallic. You'll see them there. There we have the sacred stone phallic pillars. Always you will see now these were penis head gods in Assyria. There were always two of them. In India, in Japan, in Rome, Pompeii, in Islam, you'll see the two phallic pillars on both sides. Incidentally, the churches and many of the old architecture in the Middle East and churches today all have pointed glass windows, long pointed glass windows and pointed arch doors. The pointed glass windows represent the female opening, the pointed arch. And, of course, the twin phallic pillars. And you see it everywhere. Here we have the body of Osiris. Let's see, the sky is supported, on the bottom line it says the sky is supported by two phallic pillars. And you see that everywhere. Incidentally, the Washington Monument is a phallic symbol. And it connects, it's the male phallic, and it connects to the female ovaries, the oval office. The Egyptian idea, the Egyptian convention of twin phallic pillars at the temple gate was copied by the temple at Jerusalem, where the right pillar was named Jachin, God makes him firm, and the left pillar was named Boaz, eagerness and strength. What are we talking about? Jachin makes him firm, and eagerness and strength? That's in the Bible, 1 Kings. The Temple of Solomon represented sex, period. And there are the temple, there it is again. You'll see the temple and the two phallic pillars and Solomon's temple. There they are, Jachin and Boaz. Two male phallic pillars in front of the temple. Incidentally, that's where the word temple comes from. The house of God, or the house of El, a temp El. The house of El, the house of the god of Saturn, the temp El. And on all the temp Els, you always had the twin phallic pillars. There it is in downtown, on Wilshire in downtown Los Angeles, the synagogue has the two phallic pillars. You see it all over the world. All over the earth you see twin phallic pillars going all the way back to the Phoenician Canaanites. This is over in Pasadena at the British Israel Masonic Ambassador College. What is that? What is the symbolism there? Anybody? Am I the only one seeing what the symbolism there? There's the king with this phallic symbol on both sides of the... Now, pipes were also, the musical instruments, both flute and reed pipes, had a place in primitive fertility rites owing to this phallic appearance. And the second line goes on to say, singles and double pipes, among other instruments, are depicted in the Mesopotamian art from the 3rd century millennium. And then it was also adopted into Christian theology. So pipes were, where does it show that it was a phallic? Yeah, the third line down on the pipe. As a symbol of male sexuality, it occurs in Greco-Roman and Renaissance art. And so the pipes, this is why we have something called a male organ, the male organ, the twin pipes. When when you see the Mormon church with the male organ, just remember that's what it all means. That's where it came from. The twin phallic pipes. Now, enough of that is enough. We'll go on to the next one. Again, while I'm doing this, is I'm showing you how things we think we understand and we're used to seeing never even occurred to you what these things mean. Let's see. This one goes from 27. All right. Okay. As far back as the ancient petroglyphs with the sun symbol, this is from the Bronze Age. This goes back thousands of years. You will see carved on stones in Russia and all over Europe as an interesting symbol. It's the symbol of the sun, petroglyphs with the sun symbol. So that's an ancient, going back to the Bronze Age. You will see this ancient sun symbol. This is the Nordic sun symbol. The cross on the circle. This is why, incidentally, you drive by churches today. You'll see many churches have the big cross and a circle in the middle. The circle in the middle is the sun that dies on the cross of the zodiac between north, east, south, and west. Incidentally, if you take north, east, west, and south, that spells news. Anything that happens in the world is news. North, east, west, and south. Anyway, let's go on with this. Here it is again. The old ancient prehistoric symbol of the sun. Going back to the old Phoenician Canaanites, this is Sumerian. Sumerians actually had the same symbol. The Buddhists and the Hindus in India have the symbol. The Aztecs and the Mayas had it. It's everywhere. The cross in the middle of a circle. One of the oldest symbols in the world for the sun. This is in Iraq. This is in Jerusalem. This is in a synagogue in Jerusalem. Here it is again. Always is the cross in the circle. And showing that children are taught to pray to the cross in the circle, which goes back to the old ancient Phoenician, and that even prior to the ancient Phoenician goes back to, and here's the host with the cross on it, the circle. It's an ancient formula. And I said, yeah, I'll bet it's an ancient formula. It's real ancient. Far more ancient than you would suspect. On the caps of the French used to carry it. That's in Freemasonry. Churches. Rosicrucians. Queen Mum. There's Queen Mum with the symbol of the cross. This ancient sun cross of the most ancient people of the world. And today it's still being used all over the world, and people have no idea in the world where it came from. Even the Nazis. You'll see the Nazis had the sun cross. Nazis with their sun cross. Now, while this may not seem very important, you need to understand the reason why it's important is because, and this will only be just a moment, even the Pope wears the sun cross. There it is again at the Vatican. You need to ask yourself, how come the old ancient petroglyph from thousands and thousands, probably anywhere from 10 to 15,000 years ago, the old prehistoric world marked the symbol of the sun as a... It's the same way that it is now at the Vatican. Is there a message here or what? So when you talk about God's Son being the light of the world, you better look at it, because there's something else going on here. Oh, I'm sorry. Now, what is this? This is number 5. Yeah, this is number 5. Okay. Okay, yes. Now, we're talking about the law before, and Moses is the lawgiver. Actually, the word Moses is a Egyptian word, and in the ancient Egyptian language, the word Moses meant the son of. Like in Hebrew today, Ben, B-E-N, means in Hebrew the son of. So like Judah ben Hur, Judah was the son of, his father's last name was Hur, H-U-R, Judah ben Hur, or Ben, B-E-N means the son of. Incidentally, if you look up in the Hebrew Encyclopedia, look up the word Hur, because I did that for Judah ben Hur. H-U-R is a Hebrew spelling of Horus. The sun god Horus was called in Hebrew Hur, H-U-R. So when the sun came up in the morning, Horus was our newborn son, and he took 12 steps across heaven. They were called Horuses, H-O-U-R-S, Horus. And he took 12 steps. That's where we get a 12-step program for alcoholics, a 12-step program. When you go to school, you start in the 1st grade and you end up in the 12th grade. It's a 12-step program because the ancient Egyptians said that the sun, whose name was Horus, when he was risen in the morning with our risen Savior, he walked across the sky in 12 steps, and each one was a different Horus. The first was Horus of the first step, Horus of the second step, Horus of the third step, and going down the line, Horus of the 12th step. So there were 12 different Horuses, and consequently we took the word Horus, H-O-R-U-S, and turned it around and make it H-O-U-R-S. So it's 12 hours. No, 12 hours is just changed into U and the R and Horus. So the 12 Horuses are the 12 steps in heaven, which are the 12 hours of day. And consequently, the sun brought light into the world, and in Latin, the sun, or light in Latin, is Lucius. Lucius, Lucifer, Luce, Lux, Lucius, all mean in Latin light. This is why you have Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is Lucius walking across the sky, and he's doing battle with the Prince of Darkness, whose name in the Egyptian was Set, S-E-T, because they noticed it got dark at sunset. And consequently, God's Son was chasing that evil Prince of Darkness until he died at the 12th step, and then he's gone, and he leaves the world in the hands of the Prince of Darkness, and his name was Set. And of course, it does get dark at sunset. Now, keeping all that in mind, we have the law, the Mosaic law. Volcanoes are very important now in this in the Mosaic law. A lot of people don't know the connection between a volcano and the Mosaic law. Well, let me show you. Volcanoes, like any other impressive and fearful aspect of nature, volcanoes have been the object of worship for human beings in the earliest Stone Age. Yet the original Yahweh seems to have begun as a volcano god also. Mount Sinai, incidentally, the moon god in the old Phoenician Canaanite system, The moon god in Cana was called Sin, S-I-N. That was the name of the moon god. And in the ancient Phoenician Canaanite language, which we today call Hebrew, Hebrew is actually the Phoenician Canaanite language. The word for a mountain is Ai. And the ancient Phoenician Canaanite, Ai was a word for the mountain. So the mountain of the moon god was Sin, and the mountain is Ai. So they put it together and becomes Sinai. Mount Sinai is nothing more than the mountain of the moon god, which, you know, I don't care. If you think that's holy, fine. But there's nothing holy in Israel. There ain't never been nothing holy in Israel. There's nothing holy in Rome. There's nothing holy in Salt Lake City. There's nothing holy in Rome. And there sure as hell is nothing holy in Mecca. All of this is a play on words and terms, and that's why you can call out to God, and all the nations of the world can call out to the divine to protect you and to protect your country, and there's no protection coming. God did not step in to save the Jews from Hitler, and it does not appear that God's doing anything to step in to save this country. Why? Because like Thomas Jefferson says, I fear for this country when I remember that God is just. Meaning that until you get yourself in line with truth, and until you've got this correctly understood the divine presence in the universe and what is truth, and until you do that, don't call out to God. And remember how in the book of Isaiah, when the scripture says, the scripture says in Isaiah, God saying to the people, when what you dread comes upon you as pregnant pains upon a pregnant woman, as pains of distress upon a pregnant woman, when what you dread comes upon you like pains of distress on a pregnant woman, do not call out to me to help you. Do not call out, because I will not be found. Quite simply meaning, until you get your theology and your life in tune with the divine universe and that divine universal God force in the universe, until you start getting yourself in tune with the real truth of who God is and who created this universe and how it all came into being, until you're ready to do that, don't call out to God for anything. Because God is going to do whatever He's going to do, but just make sure you don't get in the way, thinking that you're doing something wonderful, and come to find out, no, you're part of the problem. You haven't done your homework. And that's what I've been telling people for years. I'm not trying to criticize anybody. I'm telling you, do your homework. Because I am totally convinced that there is a very powerful divine presence in the universe that I myself refer to as God. I don't know what God is, but I know what He isn't. And consequently, I have a high respect for that divine presence in the universe, and I think we need to get in tune with it, because that's the only thing that's going to save us. Our leaders are not leaders, they're misleaders. Yet the original Yahweh seems to have begun as a volcano god. Mount Sinai, where Moses encountered him, was the seat of a Midianite god who formerly had dwelt in the volcano. He was also identified, Yahweh was also identified with the local moon god Sin, after whom the mountain was named. The appearance of Yahweh as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night certainly suggests a volcano spirit. The Bible says in Exodus that Yahweh appeared as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. That's true. There's the holy mountain with the pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Here we have Israel at Sinai dedicated itself to Yahweh, and what do you see? Does that look like a volcano to you? Here's another one. Jehovah led the sons of Israel to a mountain named Sinai in the desert. He gave them His law. Does that look like a volcano to you? The magnificence of Yahweh. These are just some scriptures talking about the volcano God. I'm going to go past these quotes. These are all quoting from the Bible how Jehovah was the fire. Oh, here it is again. Now this is in the Bible. Thunder is called in Hebrew kolach, voices, for it is considered the voice of God. Thunder is called voices, for it is considered the voice of God. So when you hear that Moses went up into the mountain and heard the voice of God, I can imagine. And he came down with his face glowing. I would respectfully suggest that the whole mountain is glowing. I could see why your face would be glowing if you were going up on the side of a volcano. Lightning can be symbolized by an arrow, obviously. Here in the Bible, in Job 37, under Job 38, but this is actually the footnotes for Job 37, it says, the storm, the clouds are God's tent, gathered as the thunder or the voice of Yahweh roars. They descend and God shoots the arrows of his lightning. Later, it's called the mist. In the Hebrew Targums, is literally the mist is his smoke, his thunderbolts. The linear correct translation in Hebrew is God thunders wonderfully with his voice. So we're talking about lightning and thunder. Here it is again, Mount Sinai. Look like a volcano to you? Here's the children of Israel running away. Incidentally, why do we call them, why do we say that, the children of Israel? Why do we say that, children of Israel, when our children are called kids? Kids are baby goats. You have kids. They're called the children of Israel. We have kids. Mount Sinai, does that look like a volcano to you? Here is Moses. Incidentally, Moses takes the law and he throws it down and breaks it. He was the first lawbreaker. So you don't want to be breaking the law. Does that look like a volcano to you? There's one Hebrew telling another one, that's a volcano, airhead. See it? There's Moses up in the volcano. Here is from the Encyclopedia Judica, one page gives the symbols for each one of the holidays, like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hanukkah, Feast of Purim, the Passover, and the Feast of the Giving of the Law is in the lower right. The Feast of the Giving of the Law. There it is. The Feast of the Giving of the Law. Does that look like a volcano to you? Huh? Now, here's part two, and if you know where I'm going with this, don't comment, let me go there, because a lot of you will jump ahead and know where I'm going with this. The word volcano comes from the Latin volcano god Vulcan, or Volcanus, derived from the old Cretan deity Volcanus. Very important. The word volcano comes from the Latin volcano god Vulcan. Here is Vulcan, the volcano god, with his lightning bolts. Now, part two. In the Hebrew tradition, you have something called the benediction. Now, the Pope, when he blesses, makes a sign of the cross. But in the Hebrew, the rabbis bless the congregation, which is called the benediction symbol. And so the benediction has been used, the benediction or the blessing. Here, the Pentateuch scroll crown with the hands raised in a priestly blessing. Here in downtown Los Angeles, you will see the Hebrew priest giving the priestly blessing. This is called, and here, indeed the Lord is high, and yet he looks upon the lowly, and you will see the priestly blessing. Again, the black robe for the planet Saturn and Yahweh connected to the volcano god Vulcan. And this is why Mr. Spock is a Vulcan. The rabbi and Mr. Spock. It's all Jewish religion, Hollywood, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And the Gentiles just love it. Can't get enough of Hollywood. Can't get enough of it. And that's why God has withheld his protection from our nation. This is why our country is now in the darkest period as has ever been, because we have given ourselves over to ignorance, stupidity, ill-informed religious philosophies, and have not come before God with a trite heart and wanting to know the full truth. Here we're told about the manna from heaven. I don't know if you've ever remember Moses was leading the children of Israel to pick manna from heaven. They would find manna from heaven on the ground each morning, the scripture says. Here they are picking up the manna from heaven on the ground each morning. Here in Exodus 16:14, it says, "And when the dew that lay on the ground was gone up, behold, the face of the wilderness, there lay a small round thing, as small as hoarfrost on the ground." So now we know. And the next one in 15 says, "And when the children of Israel saw it, they said to each other, to one another, it is manna, for they did not know what it was." In Hebrew, manna simply means, what is it? I mean, they tried this stuff and said, God, what is this stuff? You know? So what is it? They don't know. Well, what is it in Hebrew is manna. So they call it manna. Well, what is manna? The manna from heaven was a small round thing. And it says when the dew that was on the ground, of course, when the sun comes up, it evaporates, and behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing. Manna, meaning Hebrew, what is it? And it had 7 characteristics from the old ancient world. Small, round, wafer-like, sweet, could be hard, can be melted, and it was obviously from heaven. Because when you ate the manna, you could talk to God. Well, now we found out manna was a small round thing, mushrooms. And here are the priest of Israel. Here's the Hebrew priest of Israel wearing a mushroom on his head. The mushroom headdress. I've often wondered, see, because the mushrooms were a hallucinogenic drug. And I've often wondered, is that why they call the priest high priest? The sacred mushroom, the key to the door of eternity, the search for the sacred plant of the ancients, used to send the mind to another world and into the future. Let me tell you something. I've never tried any drug in the world ever. Not pot, nothing. Ever. However, I am not so stupid as to not be well informed about the potentials for the mushroom. The magic mushroom, from all indication, is a sincerely important discovery that was made in the ancient and prehistoric world. This stuff works. The magic mushroom and other hallucinogenic drugs like that do something to the electromagnetic forces in the brain to open up your mind and open up your spirit to all kinds of profound things that you're just totally not aware of. So, while this is a hallucinogenic drug, nonetheless, this is a very important stuff here. Magic mushrooms are not to be laughed at. It is not a light thing. This stuff is very serious stuff. And that particular kind of mushroom is called a Amanita muscara. The sacred mushroom and the cross, John Allegro, the third man in charge of the Dead Sea Scrolls, wrote this book. The sacred mushroom and the cross, a study of the nature and origins of Christianity within the fertility cults of the ancient Near East by John Allegro. John Allegro was the number 3 man appointed by the state of Israel, England, and America in charge of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The top 3 men that were picked in the beginning were all fired because of what they said was in the Dead Sea Scrolls that was not supposed to be said. All 3 men were fired. There is the Amanita muscara. Here in the catacombs of Rome, under the Vatican, you will find paintings in the old catacombs of the Amanita muscara being the sacred tree of knowledge of good and evil. Well, the whole concept is if you take the mushroom, it opens up your mind to all kinds of off-the-wall things. And of course you can talk to God. Here's a small group of mushroom heads. Here's another bunch of them. The chump there with the big beard looks like he's been on it for a while. Some more mushroom heads. There they are. So when you see these mushroom headdress, just remember that's where it comes from, mushrooms. the high priest, and all the ancient world, all of them took mushrooms. Okay? So that's it on that. There it is, the high priest of Israel with the mushroom. Now, okay. Here you will see the headdress. The Pope's headdress is called the Pope's mitre. The word mitre comes from the word, in the Catholic Encyclopedia, the word mitre for the Pope's headdress. Mitre comes from the word Mithra, because Mithra was the god of Rome before the Vatican became the Vatican. Mithraism was the worship that was going on in the Roman Empire. Now, the headdress is called the Pope's mitre. A lot of people do not know where that headdress came from. It actually goes back to the Hebrew, because here's an old wood carving picture of Christ before Caiaphas, the Hebrew judge, and Jesus is being brought before Caiaphas. And you will see on Caiaphas the papal headdress. And incidentally, you'll see that moon in front of the headdress. That's the symbol of the moon god, Sin. This is why today you can still go to what is called a synagogue. Synagogue is the mountain of the moon god, Sin, Sin-Ai, or synagogue. But again, the headdress is Hebrew. Why? Because, and this is very important, the ancient world believed that one of the gods, the most important god, was a fish god. And remember Amos and Andy with king fish? Yeah, the fish god. This is why today even Christians still have fish on the car. It goes back to the old ancient Phoenician, Canaanite, Babylonian fish god, Dagon. Dagon, the fish god. Most Christians driving around with fish on their cars have no idea in the world why they got a fish with a symbol. It goes back to the fish god Dagon. This is in the old Assyrian system. He was called Anis, the fish god. The Assyrian again, Dagon, the chief god of the Philistines was Dagon, from which we get Dragon. Dagon, the fish god. You'll see he's wearing the fish on his head. Here are the priests of Dagon. This is why the Pope wears, you see, the fish head. The fish head of Dagon, the old pagan fish god of the Phoenician Canaanite, ancient Phoenician Canaanite, Assyrian, Babylonian, Sumerian worship of the fish god. So when you see the Pope, just remember that headdress is the worship of a very ancient pagan god. Here it is again, the fish head. Here are the black robes. Why black robes? Why black squares? The black robe is the black robe of the planet Saturn. Again, here are the judges all swearing allegiance in Nazi Hitler. And here are the priests in, incidentally, the priest uniform is called, here it is, just a minute, all black robes. Why black robes? Darth Vader wears a black robe. Yeah, devil worshippers wear black robes. Ayatollah Khamenei wears a black robe. Yeah. Yeah, Omar Gaddafi wears one too. There they are. Some of the most bloodletting murderers the world has ever seen. The Order of the Garter. In England, you will see Churchill on the lower right. It's called the Order of the Garter, the black robes. A very, very extremely powerful secret society in England called the Order of the Garter. Many people think it's like a woman's garter. No, no, it was the guards who guarded the powers in England. They guard the powers. They are like a mafia, underworld organization. A very powerful secret society with the black robes and the red strips. The red represents the same thing as the red, the scarlet-colored wild beast of Revelation. The red is very important, and you'll see they're also wearing this, the old ancient symbol of the cross. Yeah, Mussolini and the fascists, they also have black uniforms. This particular uniform, this particular robe the priest wears is called a Geneva robe. Geneva. The reason why it's called a Geneva robe is because the Vatican has dominated Europe for some 2,000 years, and Europe has dominated the world, and therefore international maritime admiralty law, the law of international banks, is based on Vatican canon law. This is why the Vatican has a Swiss guard. The Swiss guard the Pope. Why? Because it's symbolic. The Switzerland, which is the home of international banking, is guarding the Pope because he's the boss of all bosses. Michael Corleone goes to the Pope, right? Mafia bows before the Pope. International drug traders bow before the Pope. The Pope is probably one of the most fierce, diabolical people the world has ever known. I know. I was born and raised Catholic. I listened to my uncles who were federal judges. I listened to my Uncle Joe. I listened to the people I've read and studied for 42 years. The Vatican is a symbol of world criminal, world empire. And if the Protestants think that they have protested against Rome and gotten something cleaner and better, you've got another thing coming, because 99% of Protestantism came directly out of the Vatican Catholic Church, and neither one of them are worth a damn before God. Somebody had better start doing their homework and understanding that we have been misled away from the true and divine presence in the universe that men have called God. And I am totally committed to trying to help people to learn and see how these symbols have been foisted on us and we didn't even know it. You see Heaven's Gate. Remember this idiot? Heaven's Gate. A gate is a door. I'll run through this very quick. A door or a gateway is an entrance to the realm of the dead. In the Shinto, they have the Heaven's Gate. And I'll run through this very quickly, but it's important. You'll see there's the sun door, the sun gate in Egypt. And the old Aztec, Mayas, and Incas had the Heaven's Gate, or the sun door. The universal belief that the sun door of immortality represented the monolithic gateway of the sun. There's the heaven's door, the heaven's gate, the sun door. Consequently, the whole concept of the sun door was to go through the door into the world of the dead, into the occult world beyond. Here's the winged sun door in the Hindu. The sun doors, this goes all the way back to the Akkadian, Babylonian, Sumerian belief that the gods will lead you through Heaven's Gate, or the sun door. There is the old Phoenician Canaanite god going through the sun door. Here in the Vatican, you will see a colorful ceremony at the beginning of the Holy Year where the seal is broken on the holy door. With only fewer than 880 days left before Pope John Paul opens the holy door for the Jubilee year of 2000. One of the most solemn events in the Church's calendar is the opening of the holy door. Here is the Pope going through the sun gate, the holy door. The Pope immediately after entering the Basilica through the holy door, the sun gate. the old Phoenician, Canaanite, Assyrian sun door. This stuff is as ancient and as pagan as it has ever been. And most people see this and have no idea. They think it's people see something like this on television. Oh, it's very holy. The only thing holy in Rome is the stories. They're full of holes. The concept is the whole thing is nothing but a story. And it has been misrepresented. And again, let me say, I am totally convinced that the New Testament is a profoundly important story, but it has been misrepresented by the people who are far smarter than we are. They have put all of this stuff together and they figured we'd never find out. Well, I've taken 42 years of my life to go through this material, and I haven't even scraped the surface. I could go on for weeks talking about this kind of thing. The point I'm making here is that we need to wake up and find out what these symbols mean. I think this is getting where, yeah, here it is, Rome. Rome in the 1st century. I don't know if you know this, but in the 1st century Rome's seat of power, where Caesar ruled from, was called Capitoline Hill. Capitoline Hill. And the temple of Juno Moneta was a part of Capitoline Hill. Juno Moneta, which is where we get Juneau, Alaska. Juno Moneta is where we get the word moneta, is where we get the word money. It's because this is where Caesar coined his money, in the temple of Juno Moneta, money. So of course, Caesar, before he went in before the, quote, Senate, end quote, he had to go to the bankers, had to go to the temple to see what the bankers want before he goes into the Senate. There is Capitoline Hill. It's up on the hill. We still say that today. The president's up on the hill. Not realizing when you see the president of the United States up on the hill, this is all Rome. Okay. One last one. Yeah, domes. Domes are very important. The word dome comes from a Latin word domus. Domus gives us domesticated, dominate, Dominican Republic, domineering, domus. Domus meaning the presence of the divine. Domus. The presence of God, the presence of divine. Domus. And you'll find domes everywhere. Churches have domes. Religious buildings incorporate a dome. The Vatican, dome. St. Peter's, domus. Here we have from a publication showing Jesus giving the keys to Peter, the keys of heaven, the 2 keys. And you'll see in the back the Vatican. Domus. So Jesus is giving the keys to Peter for him to rule through the domus. Now why is this important? It's because, in point of fact, the United States government has the same identical dome as the one in Vatican. Identical. It's because this government is dominated by international maritime admiralty law, the law of international banks. International maritime admiralty law is based on Vatican canon law. Vatican canon law is the law of banks and money. And consequently, that's why the Pope has a Swiss guard. Switzerland is the bankers of the world. Consequently, you need to understand what these symbols mean. Let's see if there's something else on here. No. Yeah, there it is, a mortarboard derived from a cap worn by Roman Catholic clergy. A mortarboard is now a symbol. The red square. Yeah, these are squares. Here's the Pope bowing before a mafia. Yeah, you got to ask yourself, how come the Pope has to bow to get the square on his head? You better check this out and figure out, why does the Pope have to bow to politicians? The square, the red square. Isn't that what where Russia was, the Moscow was ruled from? The red square? The red square. You find that in the Vatican, the red square. The Nazis used the red square. I mean, even Union Bank uses the red square. And incidentally, the Union Bank goes back to Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler founded a bank with the gold he got from Jews. He founded a bank called the Reichsstadt All-German Union Bank. The Reichsstadt All-German Union Bank. Today, the Reichsstadt All-German Union Bank is known in our country as Union Bank. Union Bank was founded by Adolf Hitler. But don't take this personal. It's just business. Understand? Here is a red shield, Rothschild, and what do you see as a symbol of fascism? Fascism was an authoritarian political movement. The last sentence, it says, its name was derived from a fasces, a Roman symbol for authority consisting of a bundle of rods and an axe. Political life. In most cases, fascists have come to power after a nation has suffered an economic collapse, a military defeat, or some other disaster. The fascist party wins mass support by promising to revive the economy and restore national pride. Say it again? When? Right now. Okay. Political life under fascism. In most cases, fascists have come to power after a nation has suffered an economic collapse, a military defeat, or some other disaster. The fascist party wins mass support by promising to revive the economy and restore national pride. Where have we heard this crap before? The people running this country are nothing but the patsies for international fascist Nazism. They are fascist murderers all. And one day, there's going to come a time when the divine justice is going to be having its way on this earth, and people like George Bush and all of the other fascist, Nazi, underworld, mafiosi murderers are going to bite the dust. You can bet on it. God has watched the coming and going of Hitler's for thousands of years, and it hasn't impressed him a bit. And the people that are running this government today, they're on their way out too, very soon. Personal liberty. Personal liberty is severely limited under a fascist government. Here is a fascite. You'll see it underneath. It's everywhere throughout the world, especially in South America. Italy. France. Italy again. Benito Mussolini. You'll see the fascite. Fascism of Italian domination. Here's Kurt Waldheim, fascist Nazi, ended up being the head of the United Nations. I don't know what that tells you about the UN. And here's the Pope with his fascist Nazi friend. Both of them are grinning because they both know what they're doing, and they know you don't know what they're doing. And that's why they're both smiling. I put the Pope in the same place with Adolf Hitler and the other fascist Nazis. I know. I've done 42 years of research on the Roman system of fascism, Nazism, and I can tell you the papacy is the bottom line if you want to talk about fascism.